Welcome to the Scamverse, a small, absurd, and overlooked galaxy frequented by criminals, thieves, charlatans, podcast listeners, and other assorted ne'er-do-wells. This podcast includes dark humor, violence, and adult themes. Content warnings can be found in the episode description. Our tales include Reign of Blood, Follow a Hitman on His First Day of Retirement, and For Sale, Clown Shoes, Never Worn. One of these ninjas is not like the others. This episode is sponsored by Scamverse sponsor Trubnell Sausages, now with 15% more species than competing brands. Reign of Blood. They called me Reign of Blood, a moniker I received from the other hitmen over my 40-year career. Reign of Blood meant when I was on the job, well, it rained blood. It also spelled my name, R-O-B. But everything was about to change. Tonight would be the last reign of blood. I'm retiring, and it feels good to get out of the business. I made a successful career for myself and provided for my wife, Laura, and my son, Richie, who's now full grown with a family of his own. Don't get me wrong, the business was good to me, but I didn't like killing marks. I didn't mind it either. Killing was my business, simple as that. Now that I'm retiring, I look back and regret two things. The first was lying to my wife and son. They thought I was a traveling dish soap repairman. The second regret was when innocents got caught in the crossfire. Their eyes haunt me and turn my dreams into nightmares. Tonight, I was in a warehouse office, the mark in front of me tied to a desk chair. He gave the same pleading expression they all do. He would give anything for a few more minutes, another chance to explain, and so on. I looked him in the eyes. I'm retiring tomorrow. You're my last one. You should feel lucky it's me instead of one of the young ones.
Why is that?
I make it quick and painless. The bullet entered his brain. Per standard protocol, I used the desk phone and called for cleanup on aisle 5. I set the gun and gloves on the desk, touched nothing, and left. The cleanup crew would make sure there was no evidence. That night, I promised myself nobody would ever die because of me again. The next morning, I awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon. I went to the dining table and found Laura had made breakfast.
Now that you're retired, no more unhealthy food in that greasy diner. You have a nice, nutritious breakfast at home, mister.
She gave me a kiss and smiled. On my plate were 4 fried eggs, a half-pound of bacon, biscuits and sausage gravy, fried potatoes, Spam, buttered pancakes with syrup, a glass of whole milk mixed with 7-Up, black coffee, and a small bowl of melted lard for dipping. Great. Health food, I thought to myself, but nodded in approval. After breakfast, I lit a cigarette to aid in digestion. I planned to practice my golf swing on my first day of retirement. Laura brought out a list of things to fix around the house. I read the list and made mental notes of supplies to pick up. This list is as long as a nun's...
Oh, Rob, you promised me. I allowed that kind of language from you when you were working because I knew it helped your stress. But you promised me no more swearing once you retired.
She looked at me sharply. It's true. She had me and I couldn't deny it. I looked at her and smiled. Laura, still as beautiful as the day I met her, she was good for me. No more swear words, darling, I promise. She smiled and pointed to the list.
The first is the easiest. Where is that lamp you fixed for Mrs. Cooley?
Mrs. Cooley was an old, widowed woman in our neighborhood. Laura looked in on her because she's an angel. I retrieved the lamp for her to take.
Thank you, dear. Her vision is not the best when it's dark, and she wants the extra light to do her chores.
Laura gave me a kiss, and I headed out to the golf range. As I drove my Chevy Bel Air to the practice range, I thought about my promises and my future. I promised no more swearing. Tough, but doable. I promised myself nobody would ever die because of me again. I caused so much death in my life. That was over. I smiled and lit a cigarette to aid in driving skills. The morning was sunny and warm, perfect for golf practice. The usual crowd lingered at the golf range, including Buddy, the manager. Buddy was young for a manager, but always had a smile for his customers, and he knew his golf. After some lip-flapping, I took my bucket of balls, pulled out my driver, and took a few swings. Not good. I was definitely out of practice. Plus, something about this driver felt off. It was old, and admittedly not well cared for. I would ask Buddy to take a look at it. And speaking of the devil, I heard Buddy behind me talking to the others.
I guess I'm doomed, huh, fellas?
Someone from the group shouted.
Hey, everyone, good news! Clara said yes! Our boy Buddy here is getting married!
The sudden blast of cheers startled me, and I pulled too hard on my backswing. The head of my driver snapped off. I looked behind me and saw the driver's broken shaft lodged into Buddy's neck. Blood spurted everywhere, and the jagged metal spike pierced his carotid artery. A doctor in the group did his best, but it was already too late. I knew because I'd seen it 100 times. Buddy died within minutes. God damn, floppy kittens, I said, remembering my promise to Laura. As I drove back into town, I thought about my promises. Reign of Blood was over. That wasn't me anymore. I was retired. What happened to Buddy was an accident. Yes, a horrible accident, but not my fault. A young clergyman stood on the side of the road next to his automobile. He held a gas canister with one hand, thumb out for a ride with the other. I offered him a ride. His name was Pastor Jerry, and he had run out of gas just before getting to the city.
Thanks again for the ride. I thought I would never make it to my church.
Only happy to help, Padre. There's a filling station just as we get into the city. I thought for a minute about Buddy. I asked, Say, when you get to your church, would you do me a favor?
Of course, Rob. What is it?
I glanced at him, then pointed upwards to the sky. Would you put a good word in with the boss for me?
No problem. I'll be happy to.
We talked about his plans. He was the new pastor for the East City Church. He told me about his plans to revive the congregation and help souls in need. I couldn't help but admire this young man who was about to do so much good. We reached the filling station, and he went to fill the gas canister. Learning my lesson from the golf practice mishap, I decided it was best to keep my distance from the good pastor while he filled his gas canister. I stepped across the street and enjoyed the sunshine. As I stood there, a pretty young lady walked up and asked me an odd question.
Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me what that is?
She pointed to the filling station. I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. The filling station?
Yes, I'm new to the city, to all cities as a matter of fact. My name is Sally, and I'm from a remote village far out of town. We travel by horses only. Just today I saw a automobile. Is that right? Automobile?
Yes, you're right. How interesting. What brings you to the city?
I'm a seamstress. Not to sound boastful, but I'm quite good. I came to teach poor children how to sew beautiful clothes without needing expensive supplies. This may inspire some of them to become seamsters and seamstresses themselves. Oh, I'm so excited to help these children.
She showed me her own beautifully sewn cotton dress. Why, that is wonderful. Congratulations, Sally. Here, this will help with supplies. I pulled a $5 bill from my wallet and handed it to her. At first she refused, but then she took it.
Thank you, sir. This will help so much. I am waiting for the 45 bus, I think it's called.
She looked again across the street.
About this filling?
Oh, yes. You see, Sally, automobiles. How should I explain this? They need fuel. Sally looked at me and tilted her head. I tried again. Automobiles get thirsty. So this filling station, it's like giving the automobile water. Water for thirsty automobiles. She nodded in understanding.
I see. Water for thirsty automobiles. Like water for thirsty horses.
Exactly, Sally. I was having such a wonderful time. Enjoying the sunny day and the company, I pulled out a cigarette and offered Sally one, which she politely declined. I lit the cigarette and tossed the match. A sudden breeze stoked the fire on the match and set it on Sally's cotton dress. The next thing I saw was Sally hopping around, panicked. Flames rose from the hem of her cotton dress. I tried tamping down the flames. Roll on the ground, Sally, roll on the ground. She wasn't listening. Sally then saw Pastor Jerry in the gas canister.
Water! Water for automobiles! Water!
She screamed and darted across the street.
No.
Pastor Jerry heard screaming and looked up. His eyes widened as a flaming human torch shot at him, screaming,
Water! Water! Water!
No, stay
water!
away!
Water!
Stay away!
Water!
No! Stay
He
away!
yelled at Sally to stay back, but within moments she was on him, grabbing for the canister and splashing gasoline over them. They became a sickening tableau of dancing flames and burning flesh. The screams were horrible, but the silence afterwards was worse. Bumping rhino toast, I yelled, remembering my promise to Laura. I needed a drink. I parked my Bel Air a few blocks from Mel's bar. As I walked, I thought about my promises. Reign of Blood was over. That wasn't me anymore. I was retired. What happened to Buddy, Jerry, and Sally were accidents. Yes, horrible accidents, but not my fault. At the intersection, an elderly lady carrying a bag of groceries stepped into the street. She hadn't noticed an oncoming car, and I rushed in and pulled her away. I did it! I saved someone today. We waited at the light, and she told me her name was Millie. She thanked me, as she was hard of hearing and hadn't heard the car approaching. When the light turned, I carried Millie's groceries for her and helped her cross the street. After all, that's harmless, right? Millie thanked me and took back her groceries. As she shuffled down the street, I felt good about myself. I watched Millie get farther down the street unharmed, and with each step I felt better. Some groceries fell out of the bag, and Millie bent down to pick them up. A construction crew at the top of the building began screaming.
Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Get out of the way!
But Millie didn't hear them. She also didn't notice a large brick slab had accidentally come loose and was hurtling down towards her. I ran to Millie, but she was too far away. The brick slab crushed Millie. "Are you railroad pudding kidding me?" I yelled, remembering my promise to Laura. From across the street, a young man had also run to try and save Millie. In his sprint, he didn't see the bus careening at him. The bus smacked him, and the man rolled down the street, over and over, smearing blood and guts on the concrete like a human paint roller. "Gumbo slob bullcakes," I yelled, remembering my promise to Laura. I searched the man for identification. In his pocket, I found a blood-smeared letter from the city school board. Addressed to Mr. Danny Brewster, it congratulated him on winning the Teacher of the Year award. "Of course," I muttered. The bus driver ran out to me and the bits left of Danny.
Oh my, I didn't see him. I didn't. He came out of nowhere.
He looked over and saw blood leaking out from the brick slab.
What the?
He grabbed his chest at his name tag, Alan. I ran to Alan. "It's okay, you're okay."
My heart pills.
Alan pointed to his bus. I knew that look of fear in his eyes, and I ran to the bus. I ignored the screaming passengers and searched the driver's seat. There was too much clutter, mostly piles of birthday cards to Alan from his passengers. I found the heart pills and rushed outside, but it was too late. Alan was sprawled on the concrete, still clutching his chest, with his face frozen in terror. "Oh, come on! Seriously," I yelled. I looked over and saw Alan's bus number, 45. Huh! Oh, look, Sally's bus. I made it to Mel's and had a drink, or 3. I thought about my promises. Reign of Blood was over. That wasn't me anymore. I was retired. What happened to Buddy, Jerry, Sally, Millie, Danny, and Alan were accidents. Yes, horrible accidents, but not my fault. Is this what retirement would be like? I'd had enough for one day. I drove home and stepped into my house, tripping over the ottoman and landing on the floor. The same ottoman I tripped over every time I walked into the house. I was about to unleash a barrage of curse words on the ottoman when I saw Laura crying on the sofa.
Rob, it's terrible. Mrs. Cooley was killed today.
Sounds about right, I thought to myself. Darling, what happened to Mrs. Cooley?
She loved the lamp you fixed, and she was eager to start her chores. She wanted to clean her fish tank and put the lamp up on the tank ledge for extra light. While she was cleaning the tank, the lamp fell in and...
I went to comfort her. As she buried her crying face into my chest, I mouthed the swear words I was not allowed to say. Later that evening after dinner, Laura and I settled in on an early night. I climbed into bed and held Laura in my arms. She was soft, warm, and lovely, as always. I thought how blessed I was. I thought about my promises. Reign of Blood, that was over. That wasn't me anymore. I was retired. What happened to Buddy, Jerry, Sally, Millie, Danny, Alan, and Mrs. Cooley were accidents. Yes, horrible accidents, but not my fault. Today was tough, but tomorrow would be better. With those thoughts, I drifted off to sleep. This episode is dedicated to the memory of Rob Petrino, dish soap repairman and loving husband and father who passed on his first day of retirement. He died in his sleep, peacefully and painlessly, in a warm bed next to the woman he loved. And now a special message from our sponsor, Trubnell Sausages.
Hi, this is Hargan Q. Trubnell of Trubnell's Meats. I was shopping at the Caveat Emporium and happened to see a stuffed animal store where kids were making the merchandise. So I asked the store employee, "Hey, how'd you get child labor? How much do you have to pay these little squirts?" You know what she said? "Pay them? No, you have it backwards. They pay us to make the stuffed animals." Mind blown. "Why?" I asked. She said, "It's their birthday, silly." Well, let me tell you, my mother didn't raise no fool. And when Hargan Q. Trubnell hears a good business idea, he runs with it. That's why I'm proud to announce we are changing the name of Trubnell's Sausage Factory to Build-A-Brat. Have your kid's birthday at Build-A-Brat. Hooray! As busy parents, you need somewhere to entertain your kids and their little friends for birthdays. And I've looked around. Birthday party rentals aren't cheap. And we, at Build-A-Brat, need day workers with small hands to unclog meat grinders and clot mashers. And we charge you half compared to those hoity-toity party rentals. Looks like a win-win to me. Let Build-A-Brat handle all your child's birthday party needs. A one-day shift pass includes accessing our petting zoo/kill floor, an exciting game of Guess That Viscera, and with 23 different species going into each sausage, they'll be stumped. A birthday sausage cake. Every guest gets a party favor/entrails bag. And most importantly, a day your child will remember. Look, there's a happy birthday girl and her little friends now. Hey, did you have fun finishing your shift assignments?
You suck!
Another satisfied customer. That's Build-A-Brat. Call today to make a reservation. Have your kid's birthday at Build-A-Brat. Hooray! Build-A-Brat is a subsidiary of Trubnell Meats Incorporated and will not be liable for any damages, injuries, or claims of negligence.
For sale, clown shoes, never worn. This is the story of three little ninjas, George, Maya, Cole, and their master Wham. Maya was the brains of the group and often did the battle planning with Master's oversight. Cole was the brawn, a fighter not to be messed with. And then there was George. What to say about George? Well, first off, he didn't look quite like the other little ninjas. While Maya and Cole had light brown skin and dark hair, George had pasty white skin, bright rouge cheeks, and curly red hair, and a large bulbous red nose. Maya and Cole wore black ninja uniforms, but George only wore a billowing yellow and blue shirt with bright colored polka dots and large yellow and red striped pants. Maya and Cole wore stealthy split-toe sandals. But these traditional ninja sandals never fit on George's large feet. He was limited to wearing very large red shoes, which squeaked loudly with every step he took. But that was just physical appearance. It was also the way they communicated. George never once uttered a word. When he was a toddler, he found an old horn at market and took to it right away. Over the years, his master and siblings learned what he was saying by the series of horn beeps. Yes, there was something different about little George, but nobody could put their finger on it. Just something slightly less ninja. But despite this, George, Maya, Cole, and their father figure, Master Wham, got along, mostly, and loved each other very much. But today would test their resolve as a family. The three little ninjas had gone to do their weekly shopping at the Caveat Emporium. Upon returning home, George, Maya, and Cole noticed something was wrong. The master was not in the garden, where he spent his mornings. The master was not napping in his bedroom. The master was not drinking tea on the porch. Master Wham was gone.
Maybe he's just at the neighbor's,
pondered Maya.
Maybe he went to the village for something,
Cole mused, but not convincingly.
George found a clue.
George had indeed found a clue. A cassette lay on the coffee table with the words, "Play me" on it, which seemed pretty self-explanatory.
It is I, Villanestra. I see you found my cassette tape with instructions to play me on it, which seems pretty self-explanatory now that I think about it. Also, I apologize if some of this comes out slurred. I just had dental work done before this recording. Admittedly, it's not the best timing, but you know how dentist appointments can be. Am I right? While you were gone, we took advantage of your absence and captured your master, my lifelong arch-enemy and deadly nemesis. Why, you may ask? Because I am a villain, and there is not enough room on this tape to tell the whole backstory. But to some, I'm going to kill your master. You see, today is my birthday, and at my birthday party tonight, after we have cake, I'm going to use your master as a piñata and split him open. Don't even try stopping me because I know you will be coming, and if we see you and catch you, we will do the same to you. Why, here he is now. We've got him tied up, and he's hanging on like a yo-yo. Goodbye, losers.
There was a pause, and then Cole broke the silence. Maya, George, what do you think?
I agree with George. That definitely sounds like a trap, but we have to do something.
I say we charge in there and overtake them.
I don't know, Cole. There are probably a bunch of them, and there's only the two of us. I said two. I know. Listen, George, this rescue is important, and we all know that. But the only way we are going to get in and out with Master is if we are stealthy and quiet. George, you are my brother, and I trust you with my life, and so does Cole. But, well, there's always been something subtly different about you. And I don't mean that in a bad way. What I'm trying to say is we have to rescue Master, and you're, in a subtle and vague way, somewhat less stealthy.
Language? I'm sorry, buddy, but Maya is right. We have to do this without being seen or heard, or else Master Wham dies. You need to sit this one out. You stay home and wait for our return. Dude, what did I just say about language?
Let it go, Cole. He loves Master as much as we do and only wants to help. I would be upset too. Besides, we have a lot of planning to do and not much time.
So Maya and Cole planned out a strategy while George angrily stewed in his room. It wasn't fair. He was just as old as they were. He was just as ninja. So what if he used a rubber chicken instead of nunchucks, or threw confetti instead of shuriken? A pie in the face was just as deadly as a stupid kusarigama. George could hear Maya and Cole planning in the other room, and when the ancient shade of night overtook the land, they left the home. George watched them go down the long path from their house. The two dark shadows glided silently as death. The spirit of ancient assassins drifted with them down the path, then turned left, then stopped at the four-way intersection of 23rd and Mulberry Drive, then pushed the button and waited for the walk signal, then looked both ways before crossing. Yep, they made it to the other side of the street, and into the night Cole dropped something. He picked it up. They're good. They then passed into the dark, ancient mist of night. George sat by the window and waited, and made some popcorn and waited. The minutes and hours ticked by as George munched popcorn and waited. His anger gave out and turned into unease, which then became worry with every clock tick. This was taking much longer than anticipated, especially since Villanestra only lived 2 blocks away. George knew something was very wrong and his family was in trouble, so he grabbed a pack of long twisting balloons and garden shears. It was time to get to work. Villanestra's lair was eerily quiet from the outside. The only clue that something was going on was a large birthday girl sign and inflatable martini glass on the front yard. A single guard stood lazily on the porch as a tiny squeak came from down the corner. The guard peered into the night. Under the light of a street lamp, George appeared, riding his tiny tricycle and wearing a tiny cowboy hat. George and his tricycle made it up to the porch. He dismounted his little tricycle, walked up to the guard, and tipped his little cowboy hat. The guard's hand went to his holstered sidearm, more out of habit than fear of this little guy on the funny tricycle. "Who the are you?" "I don't know what that means, dip. Now scram." George pulled a small card out of his pocket and handed it to the now wary guard. It read, "My name is George, and I'm a cowboy." "Fuck off, cowboy, before you get on the wrong side of my gun." The guard indicated his holstered pistol. George, not missing a beat, mimicked the guard and showed his own tiny little plastic revolver holstered at his side. "What the guard began before George rolled his index finger into a circle, kind of signing to the guard to read the back of the card. On the back, in squiggly handwriting, was the question, "Wanna play quick draw?" On one hand, the guard was already tired of George, but on the other, the night had been quiet, and he was bored. "Sure, but you know my gun is real, so don't blame me when I blast your fucking face off." George smiled, jumped up and down, and clapped his tiny white-gloved hands. "And we're not doing any of that 10 paces bullshit. Right here, right now. Go stand on the other side of the porch and nod to me when you're ready to start, you fucking freak." George and the guard squared each other up on different sides of the porch. George nodded. Once inside the lair, it was not hard for George to find Villanestra. She was at the dining room table surrounded by lackeys and bootlickers. A side table was almost collapsing under the weight of gaudy, large birthday present boxes. At first, he couldn't see his family, but then through a window, he found Master Wham and his siblings, hog-tied and painfully suspended upside down from a tree like human piñatas. Resting against the trunk was a wooden baseball bat spiked with rusty nails. George's blood boiled with rage, but just for a moment. To save his family, he had to stay calm. Villanestra didn't notice him at first. These honks served two purposes. The first was to get the villain's attention. The second was to tell his family, "Pretend you don't know me, I'm here to save you, stay calm." Of course, the villains didn't understand his honking code.
Well, what do we have here?
Villanestra, as tall as she was deadly, sashayed up to George.
I don't remember inviting you to my party. How did you get past my guards?
As Villanestra got close, George flashed a smile and quickly pulled something out of his sleeve. With cat-like reflexes, Villanestra swiped at whatever it was George pulled out, only to find she was holding a bunch of flowers.
Oh, a birthday present for me? Flowers? Well, aren't you a little cutie? Come on in.
George beamed, smiled, and bowed low. He entertained the birthday party-goers with a juggling routine, a game of musical chairs, and used a guard's bow staff for a limbo competition. Villanestra beamed.
Oh, that was so much fun. Now it's time for cake, and after that, I have a special piñata surprise. Perhaps I'll let you get a few swings in, slugger. She playfully punched George in the arm. A flash of darkness crossed George's face, but only for a moment. As the birthday candles were lit, George pulled out a long twisting balloon and made a poodle dog. He tried handing it to Villanestra over the top of the cake, but the heat of the candles made the balloon pop. Fool! You ruined my balloon dog.
George looked at Villanestra mournfully.
Make me another one, now.
George immediately complied, and Villanestra smiled a wide row of yellow-stained malice.
Very good, but no cake for you. Come on, everyone. Sing happy birthday to me and eat cake.
The crowd of phonies all sang happy birthday and ate the cake. Soon after, Villanestra stood up, but then quickly fell back down to her chair.
I think it's time for piñata. Something wrong.
The last thing Villanestra saw was her guests dropping to the ground as George's face contorted into a twisted snarl. Safely back home, the ninjas celebrated their master's return and agreed to let George in on all the ninja adventures.
George is right, Master Wham. Why don't you tell us why Villanestra hates you so much? You know, before the scene change.
Well, okay. You deserve to know, and it's an amazing story. Heck, even loathsome podcast listeners could appreciate it. It all started when...
The next morning, sun lit the inside of Villanestra's lair. Bodies littered the floor, and Villanestra slumped over her dining table. But as sunlight hit her face, she started to wake up. Once awake, she found a note on the table in front of her. It read, "This is me, George, the ninja who made the balloon animals. It was no accident I popped the balloon dog over your birthday cake. That balloon had been filled with concentrated sleepium bark extract, which covered the cake after the balloon popped. I could have laced your cake with deadly nerve root, but I chose mercy. Let that be a lesson to you and a warning. If you ever come after my family again, I will destroy you. That is a promise. If there was one thing Villanestra despised, it was mercy. She stomped her feet and she let out a scream that awoke the sleeping party guests and guards on the floor in front of her. She had to get some fresh air. Villanestra walked out to the front porch, only to find the porch guard standing, well, frozen like a statue, kind of. He was covered in confetti and stood like he was about to draw his gun, but he wasn't moving. The frozen guard gave her a panicked look and mumbled something, but confetti covered his mouth.
Idiot,
Villanestra thought as she wiped off the confetti, but it was hard as plaster. She finally found a rock and smashed pieces off until the guard could talk. He shot me. Well, he didn't shoot me like regular, but all this sticky confetti came out, froze me in place.
I wish he had used real bullets, but it looks like they didn't kill any of us. Ugh, mercy.
Right. Those ninjas are the worst. The guard looked at her and rolled his eyes, which is about all he could do.
Oh my God, you're darn tootin'.
Say, if you don't mind me asking, why do you hate their master so much? Villanestra paused for a moment, sighed, and then pulled up a wicker chair.
Well, it's a long story, but it's an amazing one that even a dimwit like you, or even worse, podcast listeners, could appreciate. It all started when...
Our next episode will be available on July 29th and include the stories The Little Kaiju, Will Mariel Meet Her Prince, or Will She Stay Under the Sea? And Family Dining, First Dates Can Be So Complicated. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. By joining the Scamverse community, you help put the us in morally ambiguous. Thank you to Scotchy Scotty for additional voice performances, outro music by Cullah, sound effects by Pixabay, music used for background is by artists listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your hands on your wallets.
There's no